High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I am particularly honored on this occasion that one of the most important figures in the latter half of the 20th century is our very special guest. I'm under particular pressure this morning because both my mother and father are listening and watching this program, and that's very unusual. When my parents call me and say, I understand that Mr. Johnson is going to be your guest today. And so I want you both to know that I am going to be watching the program, listening to the program. Mommy and Dad, I'm going to do my very best. Mr. George Johnson is the founder of Johnson Products Company, the maker of Ultra Sheen and Afro Sheen, the first Black-owned company to trade on a major stock exchange, the financial sponsor of Soul Train, the once first Black-owned company not only to trade on the stock exchange, the largest Black-owned manufacturing company in the world. Known for his generosity around Chicago, around the United States, Mr. Johnson received numerous honors for the philanthropic contributions of the George E. Johnson Foundation and the George E. Johnson Education Fund, which awarded more than 1,000 college scholarships. In 1964, he founded Independence Bank, the first Black-owned financial institution to operate in Chicago in more than 30 years. He served on the boards of Chicago's Urban League, Commonwealth Edison, the Lyric Opera House, MetLife, Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Northwestern University, and Operation Push. A close and dear friend of the late Martin Luther King Jr. At the foundation of all of my father's contributions in human and civil rights, always present, has been Mr. George Johnson. Also joining us is the co-author of his new book, Afro Sheen. Here, he will talk about that book and some of the stories and anecdotes that are part of his amazing life. His co-author, Hillary Beard, has been a book collaboration specialist, helping leaders, visionaries, and creatives and game changers amplify their voice to empower humanity for more than 20 years. The author of more than 20 books published by each of the big 5 publishers, Hillary's clients have included Venus and Serena Williams, Angela Bassett, Courtney Vance, NASA's Katherine Johnson, and of course, Mr. George E. Johnson. She's the recipient of 2 NAACP Image Awards. Mr. George Johnson, my family's close and dearest friend, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be.
It's such an honor. Hillary, welcome to the show as well. Hillary, you're going to have to unmute.
Can't hear.
Thank you so much for having me. I apologize.
It's our high privilege. Mr. Johnson, again, I'm so grateful because so many people may not fully appreciate that behind the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Operation Breadbasket, the wind beneath their wings was your consciousness and your willingness to put your money where your mouth was to fight for civil rights, human rights, and social justice. Mr. Johnson, share with us some of your early memories of when you came to meet Martin Luther King Jr.
it was in 1966. I had met with your father a couple of months before, and that was well, I'll tell you about how I got to know him. But Dr. King called me in between the times that I had a meeting with your dad, and asked me for an appointment in November of 1966. We had just finished our new headquarters, a 30,000 square foot headquarters on the Dan Ryan Expressway. And when Dr. King came and he looked at that building, and he looked at all the things that were going on around the building, and then when he stepped inside the building, and he saw Francine Hurst, who was waiting for him on the upper level, and I was standing there also with Francine, and he had Bevels with him, and a couple other people.
James Bevels.
But when he looked around, he said this is Black power.
Mm.
And that was a great compliment to me.
Mm.
Anyway, we had a wonderful luncheon. And in that luncheon, he asked me if I would help him to carry out a program in Chicago that had been very successful in Philadelphia. And he asked me if I could get together a bunch of serious businessmen, and he'd like to introduce Operation Breadbasket in our cafeteria. And I got the guys to come, about 30, maybe 30 or 35. And he introduced the program that he was intending to bring to Chicago called Operation Breadbasket. And at the same time, he introduced Jesse Jackson as the founding director of Operation Breadbasket. And that's how I started out with that's what happened when you visited me. And I was very supportive of Jesse already, and supportive of Operation Breadbasket. In fact, Operation Breadbasket not only helped other Black businessmen, it helped JPC also. We were able to get some of in fact, quite a few of our products into grocery stores where we had not had success in getting grocery stores to carry our Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, and Ultra Wave hair culture, many of our products.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, the Honorable George Johnson is our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving Black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% Black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of Black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of Black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting, on Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate day 100 since the wildfires flared up, and we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire. 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Bring spring to your door with Target Circle 360. Get all you need for Easter hosting, spring get-togethers, and more with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. From Easter basket goodies to fresh florals, getting everything the same day is easy. Open the Target app and bring the magic of the season to your door with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. Visit target.com/circle or the Target app for more details. Subscription required. Same-day delivery is subject to terms. Applies to orders over $35.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Today's special guest is Mr. George E. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Hillary, let me ask you a question just before I go back to my conversation with Mr. Johnson. And that is, it must have been an extraordinary feeling and opportunity for you to have the privilege of documenting his life. What was that like, and how extraordinary was it to you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an African proverb that states that when an elder dies, it's like a library burns down. And so 3 years ago, when this very much alive and vibrant, then 94-year-old African-American elder contacted me, I didn't know a whole lot about him, except that I sat between my mother's knees and had Afro Sheen, Ultra Sheen put on my hair every day. And when I turned a teenager, cut it and wore Afro Sheen, and about his business building during the 70s and 80s. But I knew I needed to drop everything and clear my plate. I needed to do 2 things. One, to help him recall and catalog and write about nearly 100 years of memories so that today's leaders, dreamers, strivers, and entrepreneurs can hear his stories directly from him while he's energetic and able to tell them directly. And then also to present the information in historical context so people today can understand the trailblazing nature of his accomplishments and also how incredible they were in the context of those times. So it was an amazing experience and an honor and a privilege of a lifetime.
Mr. Johnson, let me raise a question that might be a little bit risque, in that coming out of the 60s, I remember my father when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and the entire movement of some levels of Black power and I am somebody. But clearly, if there ever was a person who was sensitive to the image of Black men and Black women and how they presented themselves, their self-images of how they saw themselves coming out of the civil rights period, the grooming of their hair, the way in which they took care of themselves, there is probably no figure more responsible for Black pride in the history of our nation than the leadership that you shown by the founding and the formation of your company, and the care with which you looked at Black men, Black women, and brought forward their beauty as well as their dignity. Your thoughts, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you so much for those compliments. Um, I responded to what was going on in our community. Um, and for instance, in that meeting that I had with Dr. King, at the same time, I was meeting with him and trying to help him. And incidentally, at that meeting, he also let me know that he wasn't able to make his payroll, and Independent Bank made him a loan of over $100,000.
Wow.
But
That's
anyway,
that's 1.2 million today.
Wow. Wow.
so while we were having a nice conversation, it was also in the back of my mind that Dr. King was kind of giving me a little problem with my business with selling Ultrasheen, and because he was preaching black is beautiful and be yourself, and that shifted a lot of my customers from using hair straighteners or hair relaxers to being natural. So we
Mm,
jumped on right away and created Afro Sheen,
mm,
and
mm,
and 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 that saved us. That kept us growing instead of slowing us down. We with Afro Sheen on the market and the way Vince Colors started the advertising behind Afro Sheen, it was really it was powerful, and it was a blessing.
in a real sense, it obviously had to be. And I have to remind people, we're not just talking about the products. We're talking about the pick. We're talking about the pick with the fist on it. I mean, we're talking about the fold up red, black, and green pick where you could put it completely in your pocket. I mean, all of that which every barber and beautician in the United States who handled black hair, male and female beauticians and barbers, had to come by way of Mr. Johnson's very healthy psychological vision of us as a people. And that would lead to what? Your sponsorship of Soul Train. Share with us your relationship with Soul Train and some of the initial problems that it had finding a sponsor.
Uh, I had tried for a couple of years before we got together, got involved with Soul Train, to to uh, find a way to make television work for us,
Mm,
and it was not easy. And I'd like to tell you that we had a good result, but we didn't. I won't even go into the details about that. But those two hour variety shows that we produced were really very good. However, they weren't financially rewarding the way it ought to be. Anyway, uh, the the very first advertising agency I had an executive on my account named uh, Tom Kuhn, and Tom called me one day and said, I think there's a program you ought to take a look at," and it was Don Cornelius had a copy of Dick Clark's Bandstand,
mm,
all black uh, children on that show, and I looked at it and I thought it was great when I saw it, but when I saw it on TV, it was only in black and white, and it didn't have the same energy that I saw when I visited uh, visited that program. Anyway, after meeting Don and talking to him, I decided I'd make a 30-minute color uh, pilot. And when I saw that, I saw what I wanted to see. I saw the energy. I saw fabulous dancing, and I sat down with Don, and of course Don didn't have any money at the time,
mm.
but we formed a company, and he had half the company and JPC had half the company, but I put up all the money. JPC put up all the money, and that's how Soul Train started. The program he had that was in black and white was not called Soul Train.
Mm.
While Don and I were getting together, he came up out of the blue with the title Soul Train,
Mm.
and that's how we started.
I want to remind people, I want to remind our listeners that, Hillary, it wasn't just the dancing and the programming of Don Cornelius and Soul Train. It was also in the middle of the program, African American entertainers, the Jackson Five, the Temptations, Gladys Knight, and the Pips, all of whom were product users of Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, and taking advantage of the opportunity to showcase their own music live, live to tape. On a Saturday afternoon, I remember leaving Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, and coming home, which Mr. Johnson, who not only supported Martin Luther King Jr.'s payroll, but largely supported my father's payroll as well. Um, um, he gave Black culture an opportunity. Hillary?
Yeah. And not just in the United States, he helped all these artists that are classic artists that we all know now become known around the world. So he helped, his funding of Soul Train helped propel our culture, our arts, our music, our style, our fashion, our verve all around the world. And I wanted to mention something about Ultra Sheen as well. A thing that we take for granted today, or perhaps not so much these days, is Black people's ability to access the professional part of the workforce.
Mm.
And I wanted to draw our attention to the fact that in 1970, which was around the time JPC went public and he sponsored Soul Train, only 5% of Black people were able to access the mainstream workplace, as opposed to 50% of white people. So Ultra Sheen and the ability for Black women to alter their appearance to make themselves look more like the people who were likely to hire them allowed Black women to access the mainstream workplace, and Black people to access mainstream America. And those images that you're talking about were so forward thinking that there were not Black people who were figure skaters at the time, but there were in Afro Sheen ads. Right? Or Ultra Sheen ads. There were not as many Black authors. So I wondered, as I look back on the ads, whether I, as a young girl, got the idea that I could figure skate, which I did from looking at these ads. I'm an author, right? So in these ads, Black people were journalists, they were sculptors, they were flight attendants, which Black women weren't able to do at the time. And so both through the products, through employing Black people, through his generosity, which you're beginning to speak to, and through the forwarding of African-American life and culture, the dignity of us all around the world, Mr. Johnson was a tremendous trailblazer and groundbreaker in ways that we might take for granted today.
Speaking of being a pioneer and a trailblazer, so many African Americans may not realize that Mr. Johnson's company was the first major African American owned company to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. We have African American traders today. We have companies on the exchange today. Mr. Johnson, when you first broke down that door, I'm sure there were people who said that it couldn't be done.
Well, would you like me to speak about how we went public?
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. As we were growing in the 60s, we were growing by leaps and bounds. And we attracted the attention of the stockbrokers. And about 1967, I was visited by several. And one that appealed to me was Hornblower and Weeks. And they came with the idea that I should take the company public. It was not an easy decision, but that was a real solution for me in terms of my financial situation. All the money that we made, I kept it in the company. I didn't pay myself a salary. So I accumulated a lot of money in JPC. And I didn't want to pay myself a salary because at the time, personal income tax was between 60 and 71%.
Mm.
But they explained to me that if I went public, I could, whatever the money came from selling stock, that would be taxed at 28%. That
Mm.
made sense to me.
To
And
all of us.
yeah, so it was a kind of a personal decision in that respect. Also, though, it also gave us the opportunity, if we needed it, to tap the stock cap the capital market if we needed money to finance our growth. Fortunately, we didn't need that, but it did give me some financial stability.
Mr. Johnson, we have about 2 minutes before we come back from our forward break. Are there lessons that African Americans need to understand about the risks associated with entrepreneurship?
Repeat that, Jesse.
Risks that you had to take. You were willing to take risks to be a businessman.
Absolutely. But Jesse, I had no choice.
Mm.
I had no choice. In my view, the Lord put me in business.
Mm.
And I try, and as long as I stuck with the Lord the way I did, we prospered.
Mm.
And I would say, I really believe what I'm saying to you. I think that my opportunity to go into business was divinely ordained.
Mm.
To give you an example, the day before, if you might not understand what I'm saying unless you read the book, but the day before I met Orville Nelson, I was 25 years old. I had a wife. I had 2 children, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. I was working 2 regular jobs and washing cars on the weekend and had no future. The next day, I'm getting ready. I'm at Fuller Products Company. I'm finishing my day's work there. And I get on the elevator at the 5th floor. The elevator stops on the 3rd floor. And this gentleman gets on the elevator. And when I looked at him, I blurted out without thinking, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And he said to me, "I came here because this is a Black company. And I wanted to see if I could get Mr. Fuller to make me a better product because the product I'm using is giving me a lot of difficulty."
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Mr. George Johnson. Mr. George Johnson, when we come forward, sir, we're going to pick right back up on that meeting that you had with S.B. Fuller.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Doug Davis with 4 things you should know with BIN News. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is Black, praised the dismissal of his corruption case against him, calling it unjust. The case was tossed with prejudice by a federal judge following the DOJ's order to drop it just a day before Adams' Democratic primary filing deadline. The Supreme Court upheld the FDA's decision to deny approval for flavored e-cigarettes, overturning an appeals court ruling. Despite the FDA's denying of many vape-related products, flavored e-cigarettes remain available across the country, mainly in Black neighborhoods. In California, 2 proposed bills to ban transgender athletes from competing in female sports have been rejected. Assembly Bill 89 would have established a ban on athletes born as male to compete on a girls' interscholastic sports team. And former President Obama apologized for photobombing a family's cherry blossom photos during his morning walk at the Tidal Basin. The former president shared the moment on Instagram, writing, "I hope you enjoyed peak bloom. My bad for stepping into the shot." Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
When you visit the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the way you see the world begins to change. You realize that the more you encounter amazing species, the more you can't imagine a world without them. San Diego Zoo Safari Park. See conservation from a new perspective.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. Here's the major question facing the UCLA women's basketball team as they prepare for their Final Four matchup Friday against Connecticut. If the game comes down to decisions and adjustments, can UCLA coach Corey Close outcoach Gina Auriemma? On paper, the coaching battle looks like a mismatch. This is the first time Close has taken a team to the Final Four. Friday's game represents the 24th time Auriemma has led UConn to the Final Four. Auriemma has won 11 national titles at UConn and has had 6 undefeated seasons. Auriemma's experience with championships on the line is part of the reason why UConn is an 8.5-point favorite. How Close handles this pressure-packed moment could be a deciding factor for UCLA in their first Final Four appearance. UCLA and UConn tip off at 6 p.m. Friday night, live coverage on ESPN. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
This ad is brought to you by Care for the Injured, which is not a law firm. Past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Recovery depends on case details. Did you or a loved one take the birth control shot Depo-Provera and later develop a brain tumor? You are not alone. Thousands of women in the U.S. have been affected and deserve compensation. Depo-Provera, a widely used birth control injection, has been linked to serious brain tumors like meningiomas. If you use Depo-Provera for at least a year and were diagnosed with a brain tumor, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Our network of attorneys fight for the rights of women like you, women who were never warned about the risk of birth control shots. Our caring legal team is standing by to help you get the justice and compensation you deserve. The sooner you call, the sooner we can begin working on your case. Call 800-256-1276 now for a free confidential case review. That's 800-256-1276. Call 800-256-1276.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than Mr. George Johnson, the founder of Johnson Products Company, one of the most unsung heroes in the 20th century, and yet one of the most pivotal. Behind Martin Luther King, there was George Johnson. Behind Jesse Jackson, there was George Johnson. Behind the campaign of Harold Washington to be mayor of the city of Chicago, Harold Washington. Behind Barack Obama and many others. Silent and a quiet voice, but a very, very forceful presence in the history of the United States, Mr. George Johnson. Mr. Johnson, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, just before the break, I'm sorry, sir.
I was going to pick up where I left off.
Oh, yes, sir. Just before the break, you were talking about being on that elevator.
Yes. And as I was saying, this gentleman let me know that he was trying to get S.B. Fuller Company to make a better product for him. But Mr. Fuller had to tell him that he didn't have any time to work, to do what he wanted to try to make him a better product. And he didn't intend to be in the barber business. So I said to him, I don't know what you're talking about, but I work in the lab. And if you have a card, give me your card. He did. And I got his card. And I said, I'll come by and see if I can help you. And I did eventually. Took about 2 months. But eventually I did go by. I saw what was going on. And I realized that what he needed most for his product was to emulsify it. I had about 10 years of experience with emulsifiers. So I thought at that time that all I had to do was emulsify that product because it wasn't emulsified. And that's why the alkalinity was getting free and burning and causing discomfort on the customers. Anyway, it took 9 months to solve his problem. Eventually, we did, and created the first emulsified hair straightener ever made, and that made all the difference because it was emulsified. It was unique. It was unique, not unique, but unified, and it stopped having that discomfort. It stopped the burnings, and it was great. All a person had to do was use it, and they would see the difference.
I now understand what you mean by divinely called. Right place, right time, right teachings, right understanding, right scholarship, right chemical understanding of emulsification, and boom.
Yeah.
The presence of the divine.
Right. Anyway, but what that did for me, the day that he said we made the product and he did the experimenting with it. The day he said, "This is it, don't touch it," I just jumped up and said, "Well, we ought to market it." I never thought about marketing or anything like that, but I said we ought to market this. He asked me what will it cost. I gave him a total sum of $500. I knew I could borrow $250 because I had borrowed money before from this small loan company, and I knew I figured I could get another loan for $250. So I said $500. He wrote me a check for $250. But anyway, you probably know the story of how I got that. They wouldn't. The loan company I'd been a customer for maybe 2 or 3 years didn't give me the money, but I had to tell a little white lie. And I went to another branch of that company and told the loan officer that I needed $250 to take my wife to California on a vacation. And I got the money in 20 minutes.
Wow. Hillary, let me ask you a quick question. You've obviously written about the lives of a number of significant people in our community, and you've obviously studied history. Part of Hillary's formal education includes Princeton University, and she obviously lives in Philadelphia. Hillary, place Mr. Johnson's life for us in the proper historical context.
Thank you for asking that question. It's quite remarkable. It's not often that you get to sit with an almost centenarian. So Mr. Johnson was born in the Cotton South, and the story sweeps north. His mother brought him north through the Great Migration. He arrived in Chicago during the onset, right at the onset of the Great Depression. He lives through the Depression years, returns to the Cotton South to visit his father and grandparents, comes back north, stays in Chicago. And then the story progresses through World War II, through the civil rights years. He started JPC in 1954, which is the year that we know as the beginning of the civil rights era. Brown versus Board was in 1954, so he started JPC right before Brown versus Board. The story sweeps into the 1960s, the Black Power and the Black Power arts movements, and then into the 70s, 80s, and beyond. So we had the opportunity, in parallel to his story, to share a lot of untold African-American history. The greats of Mr. Johnson's era and even younger, many of them didn't have access to mainstream publishing at that time because publishing and the media were not open to us or not open to our stories. We also had the opportunity to tell a lot of suppressed history and history that people still don't want us to know today, and it is causing them to do things like ban books and want to shut down libraries in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. So it's really important that this book is coming out now, and Mr. Johnson sensed that a Jim Crow 2 moment was coming. And so in the book, we were thoughtful about speaking to some of the conditions that we're actually experiencing right now. And there are a lot of lessons in the book for today's strivers, dreamers, and entrepreneurs, either because they intend to be entrepreneurs or life circumstances are now forcing them to consider other revenue streams that can help our community and the nation.
Hillary, white folks didn't want to touch our hair.
Mm-mm.
So it gave birth to an industry of barbers and beauticians. I mean, white folks, Mr. Johnson, as you well know, didn't want to bury our bodies. And here comes Cage and Leak Funeral Homes and all of these people, Mr. Johnson, who at one time or another came through your front doors, sought your help and assistance to start their businesses. In other words, we did, in an odd kind of way, Hillary, Mr. Johnson, we turned to each other in segregation. Hillary?
I think that's a really important message right now when so many things are happening in our community. And a lot of the call is, how can we help each other in a time when other people not only don't want to help us, they want to pull the rug out from under us. They want to deny our brilliance, our excellence, and block our access to mainstream markets. So some of the big lessons that I learned working with Mr. Johnson were around issues of mentoring and sponsoring each other and helping each other. We see Mr. Johnson be mentored by S.B. Fuller, who was one of the most successful Black business people in the country at the time. Mr. Fuller taught Mr. Johnson to identify his gifts and talents and to match his gifts and talents with a need in the world. And that God did not intend for him to be poor. We also see Mr. Johnson being mentored by William Faulkner. Dr. Faulkner was his minister, and his minister taught him that the struggle of climbing brings the growth, the personal growth and development, and also that a good man with money can do a lot of good in the world. Which you've been talking to. And we also, I also learned a lot about how large Black Chicago's business community was, that there was a volume as thick as the Yellow Pages used to be, filled with Black businesses. And Mr. Johnson tells stories of how Black business owners came together to help each other learn more about how to build their business and how to access markets. And so some of these are principles and strategies that are very relevant to today.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, some final thoughts from Mr. Johnson, and hopefully in the final 2 minutes, we have 10-minute segment coming. I hope Mr. Johnson can offer all of us some hope. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Mr. George Johnson.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This ad is brought to you by Care for the Injured, which is not a law firm. Past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Recovery depends on case details. Did you or a loved one take the birth control shot Depo-Provera and later develop a brain tumor? You are not alone. Thousands of women in the U.S. have been affected and deserve compensation. Depo-Provera, a widely used birth control injection, has been linked to serious brain tumors like meningiomas. If you use Depo-Provera for at least a year and were diagnosed with a brain tumor, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Our network of attorneys fight for the rights of women like you, women who were never warned about the risk of birth control shots. Our caring legal team is standing by to help you get the justice and compensation you deserve. The sooner you call, the sooner we can begin working on your case. Call 800-256-1276 now for a free confidential case review. That's 800-256-1276. Call 800-256-1276.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-652-1714. That's 800-652-1714. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-652-1714 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than the Honorable George Johnson, one of the most profound and luminarious figures in American history in the last half of the 20th century. That's who he is. Our movements don't operate for free. They require resourceful, thoughtful, and conscious business persons to say, this makes sense. This makes sense for Black people. This makes sense for our community. Hillary, I'd like to hear from you some of the thoughts and benefits of the work environment people are still fighting for today. Before I ask Mr. Johnson a couple of final questions, and then hopefully he can conclude for us all on some hope. Hillary?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson was a tremendous trailblazer. So at a time when Black people were struggling to access mainstream employment, he was one of the go-to employers in Chicago. He offered his employees an above-market salary. He employed women all the way from the factory floor into the C-suite. He offered profit sharing for all his employees, healthcare benefits, on-site healthcare, paid vacation, 4-day holiday weekends, tuition reimbursement before the government gave a tax break for it, maternity leave with a guaranteed job upon return, and a subsidized company cafeteria so that people's paychecks actually made it home. So he was so far ahead of the workforce today, and he employed a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce and practices.
Hillary, that's 60 years ago.
60 years ago. This is why I say he's such a trailblazer and such a forerunner, and practice things we can't even wrap our heads around today.
Mr. Johnson, can you offer some advice to today's entrepreneurs? Obviously, you were born in Jim Crow. You lived through the latter half of Jim Crow and then witnessed the civil rights movement, obviously Brown versus the Board of Education, the death of Emmett Till. Your business was here in Chicago when that funeral was taking place, Leak Funeral Home, Cage, Slaughter. You've seen it all. Martin Luther King Jr. in Marquette Park, Jesse Jackson on Drexel Avenue. You've seen the ebbs and flows of how we've been treated over nearly a century of your life. We're living in some pretty difficult times right now. Share with your thoughts on how you persevered and how we can persevere.
Well, to go into business today, you've got to have a product that is superior to the competition that of the businesses that you're going into, and you got it. It has to be something that people need or want, and that they can value. You got to have a burning desire to succeed, and you have to be willing to work your butt off. And I would say that you ought to have a goal to be the best in the business you choose, and to really help you, to really help yourself, help people. Be the best in the field that you're in. Put your customers' interests ahead of your own. Help people. And if you serve your customers well, they're going to make you successful. So love your customers and do what I did. Follow the golden rule.
I think it's I remember when I was growing up to drive down the Dan Ryan Expressway and to see the sign of your business. It was so large, and you made a conscious decision that Black people needed to see this organization, to see this business, to better understand that we could too build businesses and be successful. And I think of the other model, which of course was one of your contemporaries, John H. Johnson, who built that building downtown on State Street. And I remember when we would drive by both buildings, your building and Mr. Johnson's building, Ebony and Jet, and obviously Afrosheen and your company, JPC, it was the most amazing thing for a generation to be able to say that we could, that you represented the embodiment of human possibility for us. You set out to do that, didn't you, Mr. Johnson?
Absolutely. Mr. Fuller told me a long time ago that Black folks didn't think they could do what they see white folks doing. But if they saw Black folks doing something, they thought they can do that. And that was a great incentive.
Hillary, your thoughts on the significance of that kind of leadership in an era when people were telling us we couldn't be nobody? Here comes George Johnson saying, I am somebody.
I'm smiling because your father came to my high school in Cleveland, and I have a photograph of him. And we said, I am somebody. So representation matters, and even today. And so we believe that we can do what we see people who look like us do. People who look like like us create opportunities for other people like us when other people are not necessarily willing to do that. And it's important to see people who have such a vision for excellence, and not only excellence in terms of the products that they create and the way that they conduct their business, but also in terms of their treatment of humanity and their understanding of the importance of things like the golden morality and principles like the golden rule. So
Hillary, we're also talking about a man whose scope, while it may have been centered on the south side of Chicago, we're talking about hair care products that ended up over the entire continent of Africa, Caribbean, Brazil, Jamaica, locking our hair. I mean, Mr. Johnson was and is one of the most historic figures that has ever existed in African American community and life.
Yes, so his $250 initial investment, I believe by 2030 will be a $32 billion industry.
All of that's chronicled in his book, Afrosheen, How I Revolutionized an Industry with the Golden Rule from Soul Train to Wall Street. George E. Johnson is the author with Hillary Beard. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Afrosheen. I want you to get your book right now here on KBLA and at radio stations across the country. We are going to be promoting Mr. Johnson's work. It's all chronicled right here for our generation in the current time, what we need to do and why we need to do it. Mr. Johnson, maybe some closing thoughts for this generation.
Stay close to the Lord.
I do think we have to be centered. There is no doubt, Hillary, at this hour and at this time, that we need luminaries like Mr. Johnson to tell their story. And I hope those who are listening will reach out. Mr. Johnson, Hillary, how can we support Mr. Johnson in this particular endeavor in his work?
Well, I think we can support Mr. Johnson, support each other by purchasing Afrosheen, reading Afrosheen, and practicing the principles, not only following the golden rule as a spiritual principle and ethos within ourselves, but by working with each other to support each other and build businesses in a time when the world isn't feeling so friendly.
And there's nothing wrong with building them close to our community. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest has been Mr. George Johnson and Hillary Beard. Thank you for joining us. Until tomorrow.